Welcome to the Darkstream. Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic News. First of all, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. I think it's important to recognize both the sacrifice and the contribution that mothers make to our society, to their families, and to their children. One of the problems that we have both as Christians and as alt-right folks is that we have to deal with the artificial lionization of women, which is very, very different than what we're celebrating with Mother's Day, and very, very different than what we mean when we talk about why mothers matter and why mothers are important and why they need to be supported and recognized. Now, it's understandable why so many men on the alt-right tend to feel that way. Let's face it, I am probably considered a notorious, he-man woman hater. Cernovich is often attacked that way, But the thing is that we are anti-feminist, we are anti-discivilizationist, but that does not mean that we're anti-woman. That does not mean that we're anti-women or anti-mothers. Quite to the contrary. What we recognize is that women in general, and mothers in particular, are absolutely vital to the continuance of Western civilization. And in fact, that is why they have been the primary target of attacks by the left and by the discivilizationalists. When you want to destroy a society, you aim at the pillars, and you aim at the more vulnerable spots. And in any society, women and children are the vulnerable spots. That's why we have the whole concept of, women and children first, because in any society that wants to survive, it makes a priority of keeping the children out of danger and keeping the women who produce those children out of danger. This is not that difficult to understand. The red pill guys, the theoreticians of game, the Royces, the Rouches, the Chateau-Hartistes, love to point out that men, any single man, is capable of fathering thousands of children. The same is not true of women. And so therefore, each woman is considerably more important to her society as a woman, as a mother, than any man. And now, the feminists have caused this importance to be reversed. What they have done is they have denigrated women. They have denigrated motherhood. And they have done so in order to make women want to stop being mothers, to make them to stop wanting to be wives. Now, this doesn't absolve those women who fall for that temptation. There's lots of, trust me, there's lots of smart women that are pushed to do stuff that they don't really want to do. If you take your average smart girl, she is going to get pushed. Well, you have to go to college. oh, well, now that you've got a college degree, I mean, you need to get a good job. I mean, why would, you don't want that to have gone to waste. And then once you're in the job, well, then, you can't quit. I mean, that would be wrong. That would be betraying your education. That would be betraying your company and all that sort of thing. We tend to focus, on the anti-feminist right, we tend to focus too much on the women who have fallen for the temptation, and we tend to blame them rather than the con artists who have sold it to them. And so, and yes, what we're seeing now, I mean, we are seeing, it's a fact. I have pointed this out myself many times. Women are responsible for 80% of all divorces. A lot of the problems that we have are caused by these women who are falling for the lie. Okay, but the point is, blaming them accomplishes nothing. You're not going to salvage them. You're not going to rescue them. You're not going to prevent other women from making the same mistakes by being angry and bitter and pounding the table. Somebody just asked me, what do I think of men going their own way? I think they're cowards. I think they're useless. They have nothing to offer society. They'll go their own way, they'll die, they'll be forgotten, and they'll have contributed nothing, on average. Now, granted, you have the exceptions. You have Isaac Newton. There's many who believe that, or apparently believe that Isaac Newton died a virgin. Now, he made massive contributions to humanity. Tesla made massive contributions to humanity. On the other hand, what a tragic loss to civilization, and what a tragic loss to the human gene pool those men also represented. So, it's difficult. It's difficult in that regard. But the point is, the average man going his own way is not a Tesla. He's not a Newton. Typically, he's just a very bitter gamma, maybe a delta, who's been hurt by women and is going off to sulk. I've run into plenty of these guys at Alpha Game and whatnot, and I do feel bad for them. Most of them are decent human beings who really just want to play by the rules of the 1950s game. And it's not 1950 anymore. It's a very different game now, but so what? We're in a cultural war. We're in a civilizational war, and there are always casualties in war. Okay? So, it's, here's the thing. When I talk to people who talk about this stuff, and look, I am not mitigating the pain that these men go through. I'm not denigrating the pain that these men go through. I am not saying that their anger or their hurt or their bitterness is not well merited. But yes, men should sacrifice for civilization. That's what civilization requires. That's what civilization has always required. That's what civilized men do. Okay? You are here because some of your ancestors were willing to sacrifice for civilization. One of my ancestors died at Valley Forge. Okay? If he was willing to do that, you're not willing to risk the possibility of losing 50% of your stuff for a few years? I mean, you know, the funny thing is half these guys who talk about this stuff, you know, they talk, oh, we have to fight and we have to do this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you won't even risk the possibility of losing your stuff. You're not going to risk your life. You're not going to risk getting scratched. You know it. We know it. Stop pretending. Mothers are the necessity. Okay, think about it. The children are the targets of the left. That's why they've taken over everything from the Girl Scouts to the public schools, all that sort of thing. Answer me. Here's a question. What is the primary weapon that is currently being used by free people to prevent the indoctrination of their children into the left? What is the primary homeschooling? Exactly. And who's doing the homeschooling? Who's doing the homeschooling? The mothers are. Okay? You know, I've had very little to do with the homeschooling of my children. I taught them to read, and that was about it. You know, everything else from, you know, from the simplest American history to calculus, my wife has taught them. And so, you know, I can't take any credit for their educational attainment, but she can. And, you know, she's sacrificed. She's put in an incredible amount of hours into it. You know, she's turned herself into an expert in the field. And so, you know, the mothers are the key. Now, somebody said, oh, we should demand women go back to the kitchen. Come on, that's not just stupid. That's retarded. You're going to demand something of these people? No. What you do is you make sure that they understand that their contributions are valued. You should make sure that their emotional needs to do the things that they need to do are met. You should make sure that they're supported in that sort of thing. I'm not always great about this, you know. I mean, there have been times when my wife has said, "What are we going to do about X?" You know, college or whatever else. And you know, my response has not always been optimal. Yeah, which is basically, I don't know. You know, can't we talk about this later? That's not the right answer. If she brings it up, she wants to talk to you about it now. So put aside what you're doing and help her out. Help her talk through it. She's not actually looking for the answers. She doesn't expect you to have the answers. You know, but figure out how to be supportive. Figure out what it is they need and make damned sure that they feel their contribution is more valuable than a cancer doctor's. You know, I mean, a lot of guys sabotage themselves. You know, they'll talk about how impressive some woman is at work, or you know, some VP of marketing or whatever, and that sort of thing. You're undermining yourself. Do you want her to value that more and feel less valued because she stays at home? I don't know that, I don't know that you need game to do this particularly. I'm sure it helps. But, you know, in something like this, making somebody feel valued, that has nothing to do with game. People are people. You know, game can factor into it. But you know, you need to, but you need to not just do it with your wife. You need to You need to do this with everyone. You need to not, um, show a lack of interest. For example, if you meet a woman who's a doctor, maybe you sit there and you talk to her about, oh, wow, that's impressive. Um, what's it like at the hospital? Or if she's a professor, or something like that. And then the next woman that you meet at the party is a housewife. What do? Do you ask her about her job? Do you ask her what she's been doing, what she's been working on, what kind of projects she's got the kids doing, etc., etc., or you just ignore it? And so the no, but it's ridiculous to say women want this or women don't want this. I mean, you can't do that at the same time and then complain that women are malleable and susceptible to temptation. Become a better tempter. But and again, I am as guilty of this as any other guy. If I meet a woman who is, well, I'll give you an example. A woman I met at the computer game developers conference a long time ago, Brenda Laurel. She's a fairly well-known game designer. Well, I design games too. So we end up having a long conversation about, some of the Purple Moon or whatever the company was that she was founding at the time and so forth. Okay, now that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But would I have given the same level of attention to a friend's wife who is a housewife? Probably not. But that's what we have to start doing, okay? We have to start valuing the women who are doing the things that we believe to be important. Look, talking about should we why don't you just say, why don't we sprout wings and fly to the moon, okay? I mean, I'm a little bit tired of people jabbering about these utopian, totally irrelevant concepts, okay? You're not going to do anything. We're talking about stuff that people can actually do in their day-to-day lives, not stuff that, well, gee, if I was magically the ruler of the world, this is what I would do ideally. Who cares? Okay? So think in terms of the possible. Think in terms of the practical. And so, we know democracy is failing, so stop worrying about trying to fix democracy. And start learning and teaching yourself to make the women around you, the women in your life, the women of your acquaintance, make them understand that what they are doing is absolutely important. Make your daughters understand that. Stop pushing your daughters and treating them like they're boys. One of the biggest single problems we have in this society is the fathers of daughters. I was reading Bill Simmons the other day, sports guy. His catchphrase was, the lesson, as always, is this: women ruin everything. And he would mercilessly mock the WNBA. You know what he's all up in arms about and advocating for now? Better soccer fields for girls' soccer teams. Because he's outraged that girls' teams in California, in his area in California, don't get the good times to play on any of the good fields. And so, he wants to go and do something to, build more fields. Why? Guess what? He's got a daughter, and he's treating her like she's a boy. Okay? I mean, I love soccer. I've played soccer all my life. Get rid of this loser. I have no use for sports are bad. Okay? Telling that to a Division I athlete is probably a bad idea. Anyhow, but the point is, here's somebody who is viciously anti-feminist. And the minute he has a daughter, suddenly he's, Mr. Feminist, he's a feminist activist. Okay? And the thing is that if he actually knew anything about girls and soccer, he's basically signing his daughter up for knee surgery. I mean, I've actually been a bigger supporter of girls who actually want to play soccer than most. I belonged to the same club for a while as a girl who's on the national team. I mean, under 21 national team. She's my favorite player on my son's team. I actually taught her how to decide when to shoot and when to pass. But I think she's been in for 2 knee surgeries already. I don't think she's even 18 yet. So, but that's kind of beside the point. The main point is that, men need to stop pushing their daughters to become career women, college women, career women, etc., and then suddenly find out that, oh, gee, guess what? She's not interested in being a stay-at-home mother because you spent your entire life pushing her to be something else. Why don't you try encouraging her to do what she naturally wants to do in the first place and be a good wife and be a good mother? Okay? How many of you with daughters, just say yes or no, how many of you with daughters have daughters who can cook well and bake well? Yes or no? I'm not gonna hammer you on any of this stuff. I'm just that's important. There's an amazing number of but you can't wait until a daughter gets married for her to learn how to cook. One of the worst things that our parents' generation, that the baby boomers did to Generation X, is that they didn't teach them how to make a home. They didn't teach them how to cook. They didn't teach them how to do any of the things. They didn't teach them home economics. That's what you have to do. It depends. I would tend to steer my daughter away from university, yes. There are certain things, like for example, if my daughter wanted to become a baker, then I would encourage her to go to like bakery school or something, because that's something that she can do as a wife and a mother and so forth. And so, but the point is that you need to prepare your children for the life you want them to have. If you are pushing your daughter into the gotta get a good degree, gotta get a good job thing, guess what? You're probably not going to have grandkids. Congratulations. Okay? If your daughter is a math whiz and she wants to, she spends all her time, doing math and whatnot. Okay, then maybe you do want her to send her to MIT. She's probably not going to successfully do the wife and mother thing, or even get to meet the kind of guy with whom she could do that. She probably needs to go meet an MIT dork, right? I mean, let's face it. That's what university used to be. It used to be for the MRS degree. Well, now it's about preventing them from getting married. There's a horrific statistic in Germany. I think that women who get to graduate school are basically, I think 75% of them are barren. And this is tremendous societal costs, because it's basically assuring idiocracy, and it's assuring the kind of demographics that allow the economic idiots to say, oh, well, we need to import 5 million Turks and 10 million Mexicans, or or because why? Because we got a bunch of useless women working in makeshift jobs, and now we don't have any kids, and the kids we have an average IQ of 85. This is no basis for a society. This is no basis for a functioning civilization. Now, I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not making social policy. My opinion when it comes to what should be done on political matters is totally irrelevant. There's nothing that I can do about it. But there is something that every single one of you can do about it, whether you are a parent, whether you are a single man, a single woman. There is always something you can do about it, and that is to lend your encouragement and lend your support to the mothers and encourage other women to do the same. Let them know that they are more important. What they are doing is more important than any doctor, than any scientist, than any, general or whatever else, than any kindergarten teacher. There is literally nothing more important than a woman who makes the decision to become a wife and to become a mother and to raise the next generation of the West. Because if too many women do not make that decision, the West will not survive. And you can't say that about anything. You can't say that about anything that we men are doing. Yes, maybe the logic is ruthless, but it's correct. So, anyhow, so mothers, happy Mother's Day. If you appreciated this message and found that it resonated, I would encourage you to do a search either on Google or on my blog. Look for an article I wrote called "The Mother's War," and it makes some of the points that I'm making here in a rather more succinct and articulate manner. Let's face it, video is not my medium. So, anyhow, thanks for tuning in. Stop by Infogalactic News to stay updated on the latest, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good evening.